Hey product bosses, have you heard? We are doing a 5-day completely free challenge starting this Monday, March 23rd. So join us. Again, it's absolutely free. It's called Bestseller Secrets Challenge, and we are going to help you lean in to what is selling right now by looking at your numbers, looking at your customers and your bestsellers so you aren't throwing spaghetti at the wall, and create the best chance of selling more in these uncertain times, and we are going to do it together. So go to www.bestsellersecretschallenge.com. I'll put that link in the show notes and invite a friend, and let's do this together while we're social distancing, because homeschooling is not only just for our kids. So we'll see you there. Welcome to the Product Boss Podcast, where we help product-based businesses grow their sales and improve their strategies.
Hey everyone, I want to introduce you to my co-host and biz bestie, Mina Kunlo-Sitep, an Amazon guru that has built a multi-six-figure product-based business.
And introducing the other half of the Product Boss, Jacqueline Snyder. She has helped launch and grow over 500 fashion apparel and accessory brands, even one of her own.
And together, we share our inventory of secret weapons that will help you dig deep and do the work it takes.
Are you ready? Let's build together.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Product Boss Podcast. I'm your host, Jacqueline Snyder, with my octopus-loving co-host, Mina Kunlo-Sitep. Hey Mina.
Hey Jacqueline.
So welcome back to part 2 of the Octopus Lab, a multi-legged approach to creatively scaling your business.
Yeah, if you guys missed last week's episode, make sure you guys listen to that one first, I feel like, before you listen to this one.
Yeah, it's a 2-part lab where we are talking about our product-based business spirit animal, the octopus, and some amazing facts about octopuses and how that can apply to how you're building your business and what you're doing in your product-based business.
Yeah, so we've been really thinking about the octopus as our spirit animal for the last couple of years, I would say, since we first had chatted with Leilani, what we said about the idea of the funnel, right?
And shout out to Leilani Lowry of Yippee Cone Cakes, because she inspired this. And if you want to hear that story, listen to last week's episode.
Right. And I think that since then, we've been seeing all kinds of octopuses out there in the world. So if you guys see an octopus out in the wild, make sure you guys tag us at The Product Boss on Instagram. And we'd love to see those amazing octopuses out there, because we actually bought some octopuses when we were out on a business conference.
Adorable stuffed animal.
The cutest ones I've ever seen in my life.
We'll post those on Instagram. And then we both had to come home and tell our kids, these are mommy's stuffed animals.
This is for work. I know it looks like an octopus stuffed animal, but it's for work.
It's a spirit animal. So, all right. So today we are going to jump into how you can creatively problem solve for your business, how you will be able to adapt, pivot, and survive in the business world with your business. And our little friend, the octopus, is going to help guide us along.
Right. And so again, this is part 2, but this is such a great characteristic of octopuses, I feel like, because what you may not know about octopuses is that they are extremely intelligent, one of the most intelligent creatures of the ocean. And the reason why they are is because they're so adaptable. They know how to pivot, they know how to thrive, and they really focus on their strengths.
They do, because they're deaf, guys. So they can't hear anything. And so they have to rely on their sight and their touch. And I think that's something that I want you guys to think about. And Mina and I have been reflecting on this lately too. Like, we all have intuition and we all have those like gut checks. Mm-hmm. And sometimes if you don't follow that gut, you kind of like override that, you realize later down the road that maybe you saw it coming and you should have done something about it. So I think that's something that you have to remember, that you have such strength, like 1 in your intuition, and 2 in whatever you're bringing to your business. Like whether you don't have a college education, but you are resourceful and creative and you came out with this business, or you have an MBA, but you're still creative and resourceful and you came up with this business. Like you yourself have very, very special strengths that no one else has but you.
Yeah, a lot of times people call that the zone of genius, right? And I think that a lot of people don't listen to their intuition or listen to their zone of genius speaking to them because they need that validation a lot of times. And that's because they feel like they need the degree, like what you were saying, or that special course. You do not need any of those things. I mean, there's many successful multi-gazillionaires that literally just knew what they were great at and built the business that they wanted based off of their own expertise and their own zone of genius and their own intuition, honestly. And they hired out for the rest, right? Because none of us can do it alone.
And there are things that we don't know and that we can learn more about. I mean, you guys are podcast listeners. We're podcast listeners. It's an amazing platform where you can get free information. And then we're also in a time where you don't have to go to college for degrees to be a business owner. I used to think, because I have a bachelor's in fine arts, and I used to think like, I need to go back to school and have a business major so that I could start my own business. Well, I told this to a client a couple of years back, and he was like, you have an amazingly successful business and you didn't need to get an MBA or a business minor or whatever, because I learned while doing it, and I adapted and I pivoted and I did the things that I needed to do. And I learned through working and through experience. And so you have that ability, and we also have the ability to constantly keep learning.
Right.
It's our friend, the octopus, does too. Like, that's literally what they do. They learn from experience, and they have short and long-term memory. And they also are observed using tools, right? So that's what we're saying. Like, we talk a lot about you can't do this alone. You shouldn't be doing this alone. And whether you were asking for help from people around you or you're using tools to get you a little bit further, I think that's really important to think about. Like Mina said, like, what are your strengths and what are the things that you need perhaps more help on? So, chimpanzees, dolphins, crows, and octopuses use tools to help them survive. And so what tools are you using?
In the octopus's case, right, they're probably using stuff from their octopus garden that we talked about in the last episode. Like I was just saying this to Jacqueline because I thought it was so funny that they will literally stab a predator with one of their, in prison term, that's called shanking. And so imagine an octopus shanking a giant squid, for instance.
It's like, I'm going to shank a squid.
I could not stop laughing. And then they also use coconut shells, right? So the idea behind that is that they're so intelligent, just like chimpanzees, where they're like, hey, this would be easier if I had a tool, right?
Right. And so what tools are you using? Tools that are super accessible to us right now that are 100% free. Thank you, Facebook. For Instagram and Facebook, those are tools that are helping us connect with people. Are you using tools for customer retention management? Are you using tools to track your inventory? Are you using tools to help you improve your shipping? We use calculators to calculate our margins. Mm-hmm. We have tools like Amazon, for example, is kind of a tool. It's a platform that we get to access and use. You guys have access to courses. You guys have access to free downloads. Like we said, you have access to podcasts, YouTube channels. Like, these are all tools that are accessible to you, and some are free and some are paid. And then it's where you decide, like, you need to lean into, like, do you got to shank a squid, as Mina says? Right? What do you need right now?
And honestly, you probably could not, you don't know for sure if you're going to win that fight unless you have to, have that tool with you. Because the thing is, though, the tools really save you time and money. Mm-hmm. And that's what you have to think about. Is that $30 a month for shipping easy worth it if it's saving you time and your employee can do it? Or all these different things about tools that maybe they are an expense, which, you guys, you're running a business. Things are going to cost you some money, Right. So the goal for you is to decide whether or not it's worth it. You track how much time you're saving, or you track how much it's costing you, and you decide, is that worth investment, right? This is the same with Netflix and Hulu and what else? Disney Plus, all those things that are subscription or tools or things that they add to our lives that really you have to justify whether or not it's worth it to you. And a lot of times it's access and shortcuts to different things.
Right. So not only do they use tools, but they're also super quick learners. And I love that about this. Mina and I talk about it that we're like avid learners, rabid learners. I don't know.
Voracious learners.
Voracious. We love to learn. We listen a lot. We read a lot. We research. We go to seminars, we listen to speakers, we're constantly learning. And so octopuses are also super quick learners. And this is the coolest thing about them, okay? That they learn quickly from their environment and from the challenges they face day to day, right? And they also learn by observing other octopuses. So, friends, you guys are already learning when you are shipping something and it doesn't get picked up, or you've just paid a lot more than you thought you were going to pay. You've learned something. You've learned that you're going to make a change in the way that you ship, or you're going to raise the prices on your shipping policies. And then the other thing is you also get to learn from other octopuses. So like other product-based businesses.
Right.
So in our communities.
Or
coaches. And so in our communities, people in our pods, in Dash, for example, in our private Facebook groups, they're able to ask each other questions because everybody has had a different experience. Or working with coaches like us, for example, like we've had our own experiences and we've coached thousands of people at this point where we're able to kind of bring all this knowledge together. And so are you a quick learner, and who are you observing to do that?
Right. And I think that when you're thinking about learning, right, the reason why I love this whole learning aspect is I think that it's a superpower that anybody can tap into. If you're a quick learner, or not a quick learner, if you are a learner and you have an appetite for learning, and I think that's in every single human, that you can make that your superpower and learn as much as you want to. The choice is totally up to you, So really taking that, and the second part, observing other octopuses. I think that when you're paying for a coach, you have to remember that you're paying for their foresight, right? So you're saving money by not making costly mistakes, but that's because they've been there already. It's like you're getting privy to the information of learning from their mistakes, and you're paying for that foresight of, hey, watch out for this, or watch out for that squid, over here, or whatever.
We love this analogy. But yeah, it's minimizing that learning curve, right? So you're going to learn from others, but if you're learning from others that have walked that path before you, or that have walked a path that you want to take that you haven't yet taken or took, I don't know the word there, that you are going to minimize that learning curve. You're going to minimize the pitfalls. You're going to minimize the costly mistakes, because again, we're going to go back to saving time and saving money. Those are the two things that people they want more money and more time, and they want to save money and they want to save time. And so how do you do that? You do that by not doing it alone, by not sort of like figuring it out on your own. Mina and I have hired experts when we first launched our first course to help us put the course up. Right? We didn't know what we were doing, and we knew that it was going to take us it was going to take us longer to learn it from scratch versus finding somebody who was an expert at it that could do it for us.
That's right. Like, I think this is why they say that you don't want to be first to market.
Right.
It's because you don't have any data to go off of, and you don't have anybody else's data to go off of, right? So it's just like how I'll give the example of Ninja Warrior, where the people that go 5th, 6th, 7th, always learn from, hey, don't do the salmon ladder that way, or don't use that technique, or watch out for this area, because they got to see where people were falling in the obstacle course. So it's just that you don't have any data to learn from, whether your owner or somebody else's. And that's why it's so much easier when you can look at what's already there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, another cool tip about octopuses is that they are masterful escape artists, right?
Yeah.
They have no bones, and they can squeeze out of tight spaces, like literally through cracks if they need to. And, one thing we want you guys to do is we always want you to stay agile. We want your business to stay lean. We want it to be something. The coolest thing about being an entrepreneur and owning your own business is that you don't have all that red tape that comes with corporate. You can pivot. If you see something's not working, you can make a change. You can, if you're like, oh, I came out with this product and it's not working, you could sell through it, be done with it, and move on to something else. That is the beauty of owning a small business, that you can be a masterful escape artist and make the changes you need to make for your personal life, for your business, for your bottom line.
Right. And this is really about, I want to go back to what you said about intuition being something where we all have to tap into that, of that this is where we need to start pivoting our way to the life that we want to create, right? And a lot of times that takes, oh gosh, I'm here, and maybe it takes a little bit of escaping, or maybe there's a competitor that's right at your heels, or maybe you want to just try something different. You need to be able to pivot in a really smart way, so then that way you can stay ahead a bit,
Right.
stay ahead of your competition.
You want to survive.
Yeah.
And you're able to adapt, you're able to pivot, and then ultimately survive and grow your business.
Right. So the next fun parallel analogy that we want to give you for an octopus, this is the best one because it's the most exciting one.
This is the core of why and when we started this octopus idea.
Yes. And that is that an octopus, actually, the way that scientists think about them is that they don't have 8 legs. They actually have 2 arms and 6 legs.
Right? Mind blown, friends. You're like, I thought they had 8 legs. That's what I learned in kindergarten.
That's what I've been teaching my kids.
But 2 arms and 6 legs. And so this is truly, when we talk about Leilani, this is truly sort of how we had come to this idea, where it was octopuses have the ability, right? The 2 arms, they have the ability to those are their arms. That's the thing that feeds their body, right? That they're doing the most with. And their legs are what's moving them.
Right. Their legs are really for the support, and the arms are really, like the muscles. If you can imagine somebody like flexing their muscles. Because the 2 arms are really the strong arms. When you think about legs, when we're thinking about that, we're thinking about things that make you money, the things that are making you get those sales, right? So it can be sales and visibility, because lots of times visibility leads straight to sales. So that might be Instagram or email or, what else isn't in person, right? Whereas other ones, maybe your strong leg is, in my case, it would be Amazon. We've seen people on Etsy but the thing is you want 2.
We're talking about the arms.
Yeah, the arms.
So let me just go back to like a fact about the 2 arms really fast for you guys. So the 2/3 of an octopus's neurons are in its arms. They're 2 arms, right? So basically their 2 arms have minds of their own, meaning that they can react and function at like a really high level, and even when they're severed from the body. All right. So these are the things, like when you say like you don't want your legs knocked out from under you. Well, octopus don't really want their arms knocked out. Those are the things that are their main, strongest revenue generating thing, or visibility. And ultimately, like when it's visibility leads to revenue and sales. So for example, you could have Shopify as one of your main arms, and you could have Instagram as your other main arm if Instagram is the way that people see it. Or it could be email, bringing people to Shopify.
It could be a Facebook group.
Right. In Mina's case, like you have Amazon.
Right.
And what would your other arm be?
I would say it would be like flash deal sites. But it could also possibly, I think this is more support, would be my own Shopify site. But I would ideally love my Shopify site to be my arm.
Correct.
That's my goal.
Right. And that's, I think, what we help a lot of times people do, because a lot of our students, for example, have started on Etsy, and then Etsy is one of their main arms, but they really want to own their business where it's not on somebody else's platform 100% and move it over to, let's say, a Shopify site, right? Well, how does that work though? Sometimes you actually need to build your emails and your email list before you can actually build a Shopify site to be your main arm. So that might be where they do Etsy and email list, and then eventually they'll swap things out.
Right. And then that's when the supporting leg takes its place as a role, the leading role of an arm, in that it's bringing in more revenue. And there's lots of things that are tied to each leg, because just think, when you're thinking about a website, and let's say a Shopify site, it's like what Jacqueline says about being a star in the universe. You need to build your own traffic. In that case, she was talking about building your own email list, but it also should be done really well in an easy to navigate site. And it should be in customer experience. It should be in SEO and maybe collaborations, or, there's lots of different things that all fall into this. But the main idea is that you're reaching out and creating opportunities for visibility that leads to sales, and sales itself too.
Right. So what are your 2 top performing selling platforms? Those would be your arms. What we teach are things like your email, your own e-commerce site, Amazon, wholesale, showing up in person, working social media, influencers and collaborations. Those are things that we teach a lot about, in our courses, for example. So what are your 2 top performing arms, which are also your top performing selling platforms? We want you guys to think about that because that's where you should be finding your opportunities right now. That's where you should be growing and focusing on. And that's something that we're going to talk about in the challenge that we have coming up.
Yeah, the upcoming challenge will really be about you guys thinking about this as the end result being sales. So what touch points are you getting to in order to get that sale, right? So a lot of times we often know where our customers are, but is that where we should be and how do we get them to buy from us? So if it's Instagram, then what's everything around that you need to do to make that from a leg to an arm? Now, I want to go into another fun fact because I think this is important. So a really cool thing about an octopus is that they can regrow arms. So I love that because so can
legs, right?
Yeah, an arm or legs.
Yeah.
Because if one gets knocked out, let's say in this case, or let's say a squid comes by and
shanks the octopus.
Yes, right. This is the reverse. And actually, that they can actually leave their leg. If they're being caught by a predator, they can
detach
go.
It.
Yeah, they can detach it and then regrow that leg or arm. So the thing with that is that let's say you go full force into Instagram and you realize that ends up not being even the leg that you wanted it to be. Just chop that leg off, right? Leave that for the predators and regrow another leg and see where it goes from there.
And here's another example. Let's say you've built a business. We actually had one of our students that she had 3 different Etsy shops, and she was using a word that ended up being like a trademark word that they ended up shutting down her sites.
It was licensed, right?
Yeah, it was it was a word that I didn't even realize she couldn't use. And she was using it and they actually shut down her 3 Etsy shops. That was her business, right? So that was one of her arms being the predator got it, detached it.
And the predator named Etsy.
Yeah, even though we like Etsy, but it's not your platform, right? Like if they want to shut you down, they can shut you down. If they want to change their algorithm, they can change their algorithm.
And in that case, she could regrow, which she ended up doing. She tried to regrow that arm on Etsy, but obviously you're starting at the regrowth.
But what we're teaching you here with the eight things, right? Like the 2 arms, the 6 legs, is that you have the opportunity, if you do have to cut something, if a leg gets cut out from you, what you weren't intending it to, that you have some other things that you can lean on, right? You have another arm. You have another strong arm to lean onto. So your business does not just like close. You also have legs that you've been building that are growing along with you that may not be like the full force place that you're focused on right now, but they're there and they're growing. And that way you have these opportunities. So if something happens, if one of your arms or one of your legs gets knocked out from under you, your business doesn't die. You guys can keep going and thriving. And that's what we want you to do. Like that's why we talk about, how millionaires have multiple forms, 7 streams of revenue and income to be a millionaire. Well, it's the same idea with a product-based business. You need more than just one. You actually need more than 2. And they don't always have to be your strongest form of revenue, but they do need to be there for you in case a leg gets or an arm gets chopped off.
Right. And they shouldn't be, because you really just want those strong too, because you need to be able to focus too.
Right.
One of the big questions we get from people is that what should my KPIs be, right? My key performance indicators. And that's a hard question to answer because they're different for every single person, right? For me, my KPIs lie heavily in Amazon, for instance, right? For somebody else, it might be traffic on Etsy. Another person, it might be email. Another person, it might be, shares on Instagram, and those are where you're trying to track those key performance indicators and see if that ends up being what you need it to be. I don't want you to think that this is 8 grandiose legs and arms. Like it's nothing like that. It's definitely like, it could be literally how many subscribers you get at a in-person trade show, for instance, right? And then you're just testing the opportunity to see if, hey, there's possibility here. There's possibility that this could be potentially a way that I make money, because ultimately you need more than one platform to really be a thriving business that sustains for a long time.
Right. So like some of our, the most successful product-based businesses that we're working with that are like multi-seven figure, they have their strong places, right? Like maybe their e-commerce and so let's say e-commerce and Instagram, and then they've added on a store, like a physical store that they've actually built out and had, or they were showing up in person and doing pop-ups. But they also work with influencers, and they also have a strong email list, and they also dabble a little bit on Pinterest. And so it's like, but those aren't the strong focus. The focus is what are they doing on, like, let's say they're two major platforms.
Right. Even looking at the top, right? One of them is her strong ones are wholesale and her Shopify site. The other one is Instagram and her own site. The next one is Etsy and probably her email.
Yeah.
And then another one is email and her own site. And actually another one is email and her own site as well.
But a couple of these people had started on Etsy.
Right.
So they had to transition. So Etsy was one of their major.
But it moved to a leg.
Right. And now because they moved that focus, so they built up a business, they proved the concept, they proved the product, they have the customer base, all those three hearts have been established. And then when they realize that, okay, I've proven this business and people know and like it and they know, like, and trust me, then they decided to invest in their own Shopify site, for example, that they moved and transitioned people over. So it didn't mean that they closed Etsy down by any means. It's just that it's not their sole focus. Now it's a leg.
Right. And you know what the interesting thing about that is that now two of them started have a retail shop now. So their flagship store, that could actually take over as an arm, right? Because that's foot traffic. And then another person has a lot of Facebook sales and people can pop in locally. So that's another local foot traffic as well, that they're coming to the actual production company or production facility and not the retail space though.
Right. But they're multi-million-dollar businesses, and we want you guys to think about, no matter where you are in this, if you are already a multi-6-figure, 7-figure business, you know what we're talking about, right? You know that you've had your really strong platform or two things that you're like, I cannot live without these. And you probably are now thinking, that's right, I also do have these other legs. And those of you that are kind of in the beginning stages of your business, you might be thinking, I want to do all the things. I want to be on all the platforms. I think this is the way I need to do it. And what we're trying to tell you is that you need to find that like one or two places that you're going to focus first. The legs will come, but we want you to first establish yourself in a couple places. Prove that it works for you, prove that your product is working, prove that people want to buy from you. And remember how we said that they're like amazing escape artists? If you've tried for a few months and it's not working, then you can pivot and find yourself another arm. But you have to give it a chance to see if it works.
Right. I think you start with one and then you could be doing another one, because just remember, all these people in the top, they all started with one. And then they knew that they could not just stay with one. Right. But the nice thing about doing the 1 and 2, like what you said, is that you have something to compare to. Like, you know which one is taking off compared to the other one, instead of being like, oh, I'm not sure if I just need to wait it out even more.
Right.
So there's like that comparison. I do want to give you guys something to think about in that regrowth of the arm, right? Is that there's this verbiage from One Kind Planet, and it says that an octopus can escape a predator's grasp and regrow it later with no permanent damage. And I think that that's the key words that I wanted to share with you. I know I kind of fumbled my way there, but the no permanent damage thing is that you guys are able to pivot. You're able to be agile. You're able to not let that basically hinder your business so much that there's damage to it, that you can say, oh my gosh, I'm going to pivot because I know that, you know what, right now is when it's when I should be doing that.
Right. You see an opportunity and you know that our opportunity is there and that you can grow it. I think the thing about Multi-Stream Machine, the course that we have, is that we present, multiple streams of revenue, like multiple places that you can grow. It's like about 8, right?
Yeah. 8 or 9, I would say.
We focus on systems as well. But what we say, and we say this in the very first module, in our welcome module, is that this is not a start from the beginning and end at this point course where you're like, you have to go through all of the steps. We actually see it the way that we're teaching this, the octopus idea is that, what is that arm that you want to focus on? We say like, okay, if you want to get on Amazon, go to the Amazon module and let us help you implement and grow and get onto Amazon. Or if you've decided that in-person is what you want to do, go to in-person. We're not saying do Amazon and in-person and wholesale and all the things at the exact same time. We're saying pick the platform, the thing that you're going to lean into that's going to be your arm. And then when you've grown that, then you have these other opportunities that we're there to kind of support you through.
Right. Because when you're thinking about a really strong arm, just imagine like if you want the muscles on that arm, like if you're working out, it just doesn't come with just going to the gym once, right? You have to work that muscle. You have to build up your stamina. You have to do specific techniques, let's say, on your arm. And then you start to have biceps or triceps or whatever the other steps are. But at some point, just like our other people or our clients in the top, they have a really strong arm, let's say in Amazon or Etsy or whatever, because they've built those muscles up. Then they can say, oh, I don't want to get this knocked out from under me, right? We've had people that go viral on Pinterest, and that is literally their strong arm, but they can't just live off of that one arm, right? They really have to think about the other arm. So then if they lose, let's say Pinterest completely revamps, we all know that Instagram has done a similar thing where they keep changing up their algorithm, right? Then what happens then? So it just gives you a structure of basically, quote unquote, I'm using my finger quotes here, of building a lot of funnels. And 2 of those funnels are really what's going to make your business thrive.
Right. Mm-hmm. So that's exactly it. And what do you own in the end of it all? So the things that you guys will eventually own are your email list. You will own your own website. And that's and if you have your own store, like your own brick and mortar, or if you show up in person and you sell to people in person, that's truly that's what you have. Everything else is built on other people's platforms, which is fine. Like, it's amazing that we have this opportunity. But as you were growing that's like the idea of the legs. We want you to be able to have these backups, these supports, these things when you're like, I always think about the Sex and the City episode where she ruins her hard drive and they're like, well, do you have your backup? She's like, who told me I needed to have a backup? Like, what is this hard drive? And what am I supposed to back up with my computer? And it's kind of that idea, like, what's your backup? What's your default? What do you fall back to if something ends up being kind of like taken away? Or doesn't work or something happens. And so we want to help you in that. And so I hope that this was helpful.
Yeah, we'll leave you guys with one last fun fact because I think it's super important. And that is, did you know that an octopus only lives an average of 5 years? So think to yourself, where do I see my business in 5 years, right? Where you're going, the end result of your goals, the life you want to live is super important, especially when you step back and think, well, is this the right direction I want to be going? Right? Where do you want to be in 5 years? And you have to constantly re-engage that dream factor of your business, like re-engage that muscle of, yes, I want to live for the joy I'm producing, the profit I'm making, the actual solution, whether emotional or a need or a want that I'm giving my customer, because that all ties into where you want to be in 5 years. And if you want to be in this business the way that you're building it.
Right. So are the steps that you're taking now leading you to your goal that's 5 years from now of where you want to be, that life that you imagine and dream of, that life that when you started this business, that was what you had hoped for yourself? And if not, remember, you guys can always pivot. Like, you can always adjust. You can always do anything you need to do to thrive because you're entrepreneurs.
Right. And that's just like, like some people, they're like, we're telling you, hey, you should try Amazon. Hey, if that doesn't align with you, that is cool. Mm-hmm. Like, don't do it. Hey, you should try wholesale. I really don't want to see myself in 5 years having all these wholesale businesses or a wholesale accounts, right? Then don't do it, right? So that's something where you have to think about, are the choices you're making where you want to keep going? And in 5 years from now, is that the business that you want to have be your strong arm? It could be what it is right now, but maybe it isn't as you step back from it and think 5 years from now.
Right. And we're here to support you as you get there. So thank you for, joining us on this lab. We'd love to hear from you guys on Instagram. Send us a direct message. Let us know how you feel. If you see octopuses in the wild, snap them and tag the product boss. Mina and I, it's been something like between us and our mastermind groups. And we are excited that now we've been able to share our spirit animal with all of our listeners, because it's been something that really has guided us on a lot of the principles and teachings that we've implemented in our business and for our students.
Right. It's like literally an octopus framework, and we're calling it the Octopus Lab because there's the work that has to be done for it.
Great.
But if we would absolutely love it if you guys would join us for the upcoming challenge where we put this all into action, like what I was talking about, and really dive a bit deeper on how you can break this up into little chunks, I would say, and think about it.
Yeah, we want to help you focus on the opportunities that are in front of you right now and how not only you can grow your business and you could make more revenue and make more profit, but there are also ways that you guys can be saving money right now, which ultimately will lead to more profit. So we will leave a link in the show notes for you guys to sign up and join us on that 5-day challenge.
Great. Thanks, everybody. This episode is over, but it doesn't have to end. Head over to our Facebook group, search for the Product Boss Biz Community, or the link is also in the show notes. Come connect with other product bosses just like you. We'll see you in there.
If you love the Product Boss podcast, we'd love for you to subscribe, share, rate, and give a review on iTunes. Until next time, product bosses, let's make it happen.